It is Monday on Daily Delivery. Michael Rand here, Patrick Reusse with me as usual. Patrick, how are you?
I am just fine. Gorgeous day, and we had a beautiful weekend here in the Twin Cities. And if I still fished, I probably would have said, "Boy, what a great opener!" It's not your normal 41 degrees and a little
Right.
snow spitting early in the morning fish walleye opener. So everybody had a good time, unless you're a Timberwolves fan. Then you had a
Yeah.
miserable, lousy weekend. It was
Right.
brutal. So
Yes.
anyway.
Yes.
The distressing part is they showed up last night. That
Yes.
game three, they didn't show up and
No.
played terrible. I mean, the Cats, the only one who made any shots. They just were flat and had no idea what they were doing. Last night they showed up and still got beat.
Right.
So that's what's distressing here. Just when Denver's bench ends up playing way better than yours does, because the big thing everybody was saying after the first two games, they have no bench. Look at the
No.
Timberwolves bench, and then Holiday's been really good, and that Braun kid, the Kansas kid, plays good last night, and Jackson made a couple of threes. He's about 50 years old, but he threw in a couple of threes, and it was uh, it was uh, it was very humbling, that one, because I we were talking a minute before when we started this. I just think Jokic is too good. He's just. I mean, has there ever been a 300-pounder with those instincts? It's
No. It's
unbelievable.
ridiculous. Yeah.
He just sees the court so well. It's just amazing. And then he gets away with just kind of pushing you out of the way, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then the one thing that strikes me though is, how long is Aaron Gordon allowed to stand in the in the lane waiting for that little bunny pass from Jokic, so he can get his dunk? Huh?
Long
That's
time. Yeah.
yeah,
It's,
he's in there about 8 seconds each time. But boy, did he play good! Oh,
yeah. Made his
he
first
was
10 shots, right?
fantastic.
Made his
Yeah,
first 10
yeah.
shots.
Inside, outside, all over. What a competitor he is. He was fantastic, and I don't know. We got McDaniels got exposed. He can't make a shot, and Naw got exposed. He couldn't make a shot, and then as all the praise we're given to Edwards, and he certainly deserves it. He screwed up the end of the first half.
Oh,
They get her down to seven, and 25 seconds later they're down 15, leaving the court,
unbelievable.
and
That sequence was
he,
unbelievable.
yeah, he dribbles into traffic, as you had pointed out, with 8 seconds to go, turns it over. Not into, he always dribbles into traffic, but this was into like three guys, turns it over, and Jokic picks it up and throws it down for the layup. And then I don't know what Naw thought he was going to
Yeah.
accomplish with a second and a half to go, but they throw it to Murray, and Murray makes it 55-footer, and you're walking, every Gobert said it, everybody else said it. The game's over. You were,
Yeah.
25 seconds to go, you're only seven down. And you're leaving the court, you're 15 down. It was the worst 25 seconds I've ever seen. So anyway,
It's like
that's that's it.
it's like a Hail Mary at the end of halftime, and then it gets returned for a touchdown on an interception.
Yeah, that's right. It looks like when Alabama lost that game to Auburn,
Yeah, the
was
kick,
it the
the kick
long field
six.
goal
Yeah,
or whatever?
yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
it
one
was it
one
was
minute you
like
think you
that.
might be getting back into it and maybe even stealing one, and the next thing you know, it's going back the other way. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sequence. Yeah, I mean, and the whole night though, and even just going back to Friday, because obviously I haven't done a show since then. The blowout in Game 3 where the Wolves just didn't look ready. Denver comes in ready. The whole narrative, yeah, they had those 3 days off, right? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yes.
They had that 3 days where they're coming home. Everyone's heaping praise on them. Everyone's like,
Yeah.
this series might be over. Did they break Denver's spirit? And I
Yeah.
think a lot of
Yeah.
Minnesota fans were nervous just because of their instincts, but in this case, it was because I was like, Denver's too good. Like, would you do this for like, Jokic is now a three-time MVP. Would you have
Yes.
that kind of attitude if it was LeBron? Like if LeBron's down 2-0, aren't you thinking, nope, nope, this thing isn't over. There's still a lot of fight left here. I feel like people were not taking Denver and Jokic nearly seriously enough, and probably because game two is so lopsided. But
Oh yeah, they
at a
just
certain point, like that doesn't matter. It's what's going to happen in game three. And I knew they were going to get Denver's best game. They weren't ready for it, and then I knew if that happened, what you saw in game four could happen too.
yeah they I mean, yeah, the thing was they just took them apart so
Yeah,
badly defensively in game two. Now, I think we all said, even those the ones who were writing this thing's over, you all said some of it's going to depend on the whistle too. Are they going to get
yeah,
away? Are they going to get away with beating on them defensively as they did in game two? Mike Malone might have come into the press room afterwards and said, "We got killed. This was blah blah blah." But damn well the NBA that Denver was whining unmercifully
right,
to the NBA office, the officiating department, about showing them examples of guys
right,
getting mugged and stuff. Away from the ball. And, the whistles had nothing to do with it as far as the final result was concerned, but it did change. They didn't let the Wolves get away with
right.
what they got away with in game two, that's for sure. So,
Yeah, game four, you know, Ant had those moments that were bad at the end of the first half, like beyond bad. He started that kind of cascade of how that half finished up, but he finishes with what 44. Nobody else. I mean, there's a bunch of
yeah.
guys in double figures, but nobody else really shows up. Cat was like 1 for 10 in the
Yeah.
first half. Like nobody else makes a shot, and that's probably where they're sitting right now this morning, thinking, man, if you get something even just a little bit more from any of those starters or more from Nah, Reed was okay. He kind of gave you what he usually gives you, but they just didn't it didn't get nearly enough for a team that can score, but you look at it and you're like, okay, who do you trust to score reliably much more than Ant? That piece of it got exposed last night too.
And let me say what I always say about Cat. When the game for Friday, game three with Friday, when nobody else showed up,
Yeah,
the shots he made were shots that were made in rhythm
yeah.
and no desperation to them because they were worried about stopping Edwards and they were worried about everything. And they let him shoot. They gave him a second and a half to shoot those threes, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yesterday, everything was rushed. Everything
Yep.
they concentrated on him. Everything was rushed. And when he's rushed, he doesn't shoot. And when he gets his time, when he gets that little tick that he needs to line it up and shoot the three, he's very good. But like yesterday, they rushed him, they sped him up, and he was what 4 for 16 last I looked. Is that
Yeah,
I
he
didn't
was, I think
look
he
at the
finished five
box
for
score.
18. Yeah. So
5 for 18, and you know, so everybody's saying, well, he always flinches at the moment. Well, excuse me, Denver, just did a much better job defensively with him. But and then Denver, you know, who'd they bother shooting?
right,
Who didn't shoot well for Denver? Everybody they had shot
right.
well. So it's it was just a monumental no show by the Timberwolves on Friday, and it was a monumental. They're better than us on Sunday. So
Yeah. Well, and where does that leave him for Tuesday? Back in Denver for game five. The road team has won all four of the games this series. It was
yeah.
interesting. Finch talking about how sometimes he even prefers to be on the road. He's kind of joking around, like, do you like a bunch of people hanging around your house waiting for the game to start? Like things like that.
Mhm.
Like that their focus can be better. But
Yeah, I
now
I don't think that.
Denver's a great home team, and now they've kind of got their, they can
Yeah.
feel it now. How do they come back from where they are now? Do they just say, hey, we can build on game four, even though we lost because we played better because Denver made a lot of shots they probably won't make? Like, how do you think they approach game five now?
I don't know. Denver's got it figured out. They've got their composure back. They were, they the Wolves just jumped them at the start of that second game, and they never got anything going. They figured it out now. Malone coached them up. They had a great approach Friday, a great approach yesterday, and they're making their shots, but they just look all of a sudden they look like a deeper, better team. And I've said all along this team doesn't have the great shooter. They got
Yes.
Ants turned into a great shooter, but they don't have that. They don't have a Holiday. That you can put in instead of McDaniels, and every time you leave him open in the corner, he's going to make it. And they what they only go. I mean, Kyle Anderson's useless in this series. He can't guard anybody. He can't guard Gordon, too strong for him. He sure as hell can't help you with Jokic. He's they played him 6 minutes. So you only got seven guys. You're
Right.
all of a sudden you're the team without any depth. You're only playing seven guys. Even with Conley getting hurt, they never played Morris a minute last night, right?
No,
And
I
they
don't think
didn't.
so.
They so I don't know where you go. I had no hint going into the game last night how that game was going to be
No.
played. I thought the Timberwolves, but after watching it, I just gotta say Denver's better than they are. So we'll
Yeah.
see. That
Yeah.
could change, but right now it just looks like you could deal game six back at home, but you're not going to win this series. I don't think. I
Well,
I don't think I can't see him winning this series.
basically, we're at the point where this is kind of where we thought the series would go when it started, right? Like this felt like it had the makings of at least a 6 game series before it started. And then the narrative changed, of course, when the Wolves won those two in Denver. It was like, okay, well, wow, if you're going to win the first two there, you could maybe win this thing in 4 or 5 because you maybe you are the better team in this moment. So I guess they've done it
Why do we?
they've done it a weird way, but here we are. It's going to be at least a 6 game series. What were you going to say?
Well, you get Charles Barkley, who comes into the series after game one. He said, "Oh, look out for Denver." Charles, after two, he says it's over.
Right,
After, Kendrick Perkins has been on their bandwagon all year, says it's over. All those guys say, well, why do we feel this need to, it's the hot take
right,
society, I guess, right? And Ant is the big debate doesn't become is Denver, if you're listening to more national talks. I don't think we're that stupid in this market, but maybe they are. But the national narrative, I listened to a sports talk show on ESPN, NBA centric, and it was on the radio. It was, is Ant going to be the face of the NBA?
right. Is he
What
the
do
next
we
Michael
spend any
Jordan? Right,
time? What do we guys spend any time talking about that crap? You
right,
know, for that. I mean, it's we you got to get into the big picture narrative instead of talking about the games that are being played, and
right.
it's and I don't know. It's just if you're Denver and you're listening to that, they're all doing you a favor. They're all doing you a favor by telling you you're done. So.
Yes,
And
yes.
Malone admits he used that,
Of
right? He
course, you
showed
have
him,
to.
showed
Yeah,
him everybody, and now I suppose it's changed, but I don't know. When I look at it in game two, and you say, "Wow," I mean, how is this? Can this really be real?
right.
And now I look at it after game four and say they're better. Denver's better than the Timberwolves. That's the way I look at it. Because offensively they have more guys who can score than the Timberwolves do, in my opinion. Rudy Gobert, a great defender, all that. Now he's got a guy he can't really guard, and then if they foul him, he misses his free throws. So so all of a sudden, after game two, you weren't sure. After game four, it's a mismatch. Rudy
Yeah,
can't handle Jokic. So anyway,
yeah.
even
I
when he's
mean,
guarding him. So
and now that Murray is more like Murray, he wasn't great last night, but he hit
yes,
what 19, and he was really good in game three.
yeah,
When you've got Jokic and Murray, two guys who have been there before, who have won the championship, and who, when it gets down to last 3 or 4 minutes, got to have a bucket, you kind of know what they're going to bring. And I think it still goes back, Patrick, to you trust that with Ant now, but you still don't in the back of your mind always trust that with Cat, right? It was the thing you're talking about that he gets sped up if you get into his head or if you get into his body and make him uncomfortable, he might do something that you don't want him to do in an absolutely critical possession. He might turn it over. He might get frustrated and do an offensive foul. He might take a bad shot or turn it over. Like they don't have the second guy in crunch time all the time that these other teams do. And that's what makes Dallas so dangerous in the playoffs too, right? You're watching it right now with both Luka and Kyrie, like two guys that can just go get that bucket. And the Denver has it in a weird way with Jokic, who is, like you said, one of the probably the most unique, unusual players we've ever seen in this league. But when you have guys like that in the playoffs, I think we saw that mostly matter in game four.
And the other thing about Denver is while we're talking about how well they played, Porter still hasn't showed up.
No,
Porter hasn't been like terrific. He's their
no.
third best player, and last night he didn't do much. He's got a little on his mind. One of
Yeah.
his brothers died, and the other one got thrown out of the league. I'm sorry, within a 1 week
Yeah.
period
It's
or something
unbelievable.
like that. So,
Right.
but he hasn't been. He was the missing piece last night. He
Yes.
didn't. I don't know how he did defensively, but he didn't do anything offensively. So they got more to give. I don't know how much more our boys have to give or not. So
No.
it
We're
was
gonna
it was it really is a lesson in getting out over. I said this: don't get out over your skis
no,
after winning
exactly.
those two boys, and they did,
Yeah.
and that they did in Game 3, and then. But bottom line to me is they played okay last night and still got beat.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's
it.
and on their home floor,
Yes.
Cat didn't shoot and nah, didn't shoot. They didn't shoot, but they came out to play and they still got beat
Right.
soundly on their home court. So
Right. And
that's
that's the
that's a
difference.
bad sign.
Like regular season, if they'd put up that clunker against Denver, and then they 2 days later they got to play, Detroit or something like that. The effort they gave last night was good enough to beat probably half to two-thirds of the team in the league, but it wasn't good enough to beat what is still one of the 3 to 5 best teams in the league.
Open a 5.15% annual percentage yield 9-month certificate from Royal Credit Union. Open now at rcu.org/certificate515. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 4/26/24. Insured by NCUA.
Patrick, maybe let's move on to the Twins, who gave away, since we talked, they lost a couple games because the bullpen wasn't good, but the bullpen by and large has been good all year, and they just seem to keep winning, Patrick, against good to better teams, at least. That was the question, right? Like after they did all the stuff against Chicago and the Angels to get themselves back into things, like are they going to be able to do that against the better teams? And they can just keep winning series now against Seattle, Boston, and Toronto so far.
They had the more shocking to me than the Timberwolves taking Denver apart in Game 2 was them getting 8 runs off Logan Gilbert, who's been the best pitcher in
Yes.
the American League. They also beat on that homestand, which they went 5-2. They beat
Yeah.
Tanner Houck, who
Yes.
who had an ERA of about 1.5, and then they beat Gilbert with 5 in the first. Now every ball that they hit went through that game. It was a 4-hopper here and a 2-hopper there, and they won 6 straight series. The best stat for me is after 20 games, they were on the pace to win 56.
Yep.
After 40, they're on pace to win 97.
It's
So
amazing.
it's the next 20 after they were 7-13 couldn't score. They went 17-3. So
That's
the
amazing.
last 20. Now they got the Yankees coming to town, and be interesting if anybody shows up. The crowds were terrible for that last homestand, Boston and Seattle, and the weather wasn't great. But now you got the Yankees coming to town. If nobody, okay, it's the middle of the week, and students are got all kinds of stuff going on. But if nobody shows up for the Yankees, then they got issues to say the least. And one thing, of course, is playing well. Nobody being able to see it is kind of hurting
Yeah.
them a little bit, right?
Yeah. The stuff with
Forty
Comcast
percent of
still.
at least 60% of their audience can't see it. So anyway, that's bad. But yeah, Well, the whole bullpen thing, a lot of it is based on how bullpens are used now. I mean, some teams you watch, I was watching some team the other guy, they got a guy, warming up in the eighth inning who pitched 2 2/3 the day before. We don't do that. We try to protect the bullpen. So some days you're going to try to get to the finish line with Cole Sands and
Right.
Cody Funderburk and instead of Duran and Griffin Jackson. Thielbar's been not as reliable. He's been okay, but he got knocked around the other day. So they got their second string bullpen is not good, but
Right.
whose is,
Right. Yeah.
that's and they're being protective, I think, of Duran's arm, so they're not going to use him as much, and they've really been probably overusing Jacks, but it's the bullpen is iffy, but they change them every 10 minutes too. The guys in St. Paul's home again next week, so they can run the guys over here.
The
You
Light
can
Rail
use your
Express.
bullpen
Yeah.
on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday you can bring different guys in. But they're getting a lot of clutch hits. I mean, Santana's been good, and Kepler's been unbelievable.
Yes.
At this time last year, okay, his manager was not a fan. Let's put it that
Yes.
way. And then he had the second half, not the second half, the last 40% maybe, last 35%. He was great. And he getting hits off left-handers, and he's got, 14 straight games with a hit
Yeah.
and driving in runs, and he's been great. So that's, that's hopefully this is him finally that he's got his head completely into baseball and he's going to take advantage of that tremendous athletic ability that he has.
Yeah. Well, and he was terrible at the start of the year, but he was banged up, and then they finally put him on the injured list. And ever since he's come back, that was kind of the turning point right there. It's like you get a couple of those guys back, and Correa was back not long after him. But the fact that they're doing this without still Royce Lewis, the fact that Jeffers has been so good, the fact that Willie Castro, who we thought wasn't
Yeah.
wasn't going to
Oh
be
man,
as
he
good
was
again, he's
he
been
was
good.
hitting a he was hitting 100 for
Yes.
for those first 20. You look at the numbers those first 20
Oh, it
games
was
and you look
terrible.
at these, it's a different planet. It's amazing. Again, it's the same sports narrative as the Timberwolves. After 2 games, they're
Yes.
gods, and after
Right.
4 games, they're oh well, it was a nice season. And then
From
the,
gods to
the
dogs. Turn
Twins,
around.
the Twins, as I said, they're you go from 7-13 with a 195 team
Right.
batting average to 17-3, huh?
Yes.
And it's pretty much the same collection.
Yes.
It's been amazing to say the least. They still got some guys that I mean nobody could have been down more than me on Santana. I said,
Santana. Yeah.
why'd they get there? He's
Right.
38. He's a dead body, and then boom, now he's got 6 home runs or 7 home
7. Yeah, he's
runs.
got home runs in 3 straight games again. He's
Yeah, apparently he's killed the Blue Jays. Apparently that ballpark's been great for him through
okay.
his entire career. But now the down period's coming again. It's baseball, for goodness
Right.
sakes.
Right.
I think the first team to win the World Series went to the World Series here in '65. Had an 8-game losing streak somewhere
Wow.
along the way that year, or
Hmm.
something like that. Some of those good teams they had, they all, it's much more of a uninformed baseball audience right
Sure.
now. It's like it's an instant reaction to they lose to we knew they
Right.
were
For
from
sure.
but I was guilty of that when they were 7-13,
Yeah,
but
me
I
too.
hated them.
But they looked, I
So
mean, and that wasn't just one game. That was 20 games. And you looked at them and you're
yeah,
like, this team just isn't as good as they thought they were, or as good as we
no,
thought they were.
they're terrible. And now here's the guy that you're wondering about though. While they've been doing this, I look, Kirilloff's 2 for 23 in May.
Yeah.
2 for
But he was
23.
he was the only one that was doing much of anything when they were
Yeah.
terrible, right? He was
I
the only
got a
one that was
hunch
hitting early on.
Wallner's starting to hit a little bit in St. Paul. They might have to do a little shuffle there. And just since Santana's played every day at first base, they
Yeah,
can get Kirillov's head back straight again. But maybe he's hurt again. Who knows?
could be.
But he's the only one doing nothing. But Jeffers has been a
He's been unbelievable.
amazing story to the point where they DH him and
Yes.
and lead him off and bat him second, bat him third. He didn't play yesterday, but
Oh,
anyway, it'll be interesting to see if the people respond to them or not. Or the Timberwolves are obviously dominating the conversation
right.
around town. But
Why
wow,
why do you think that, I mean, aside from the weather and just kind of early season, it's always like this conversation. How do you think we explain them just kind of not drawing or not? They just don't feel like the people are. I thought that people would be into them a little bit more coming off of the momentum. And you've talked about that was a different kind of crowd than comes to 162 games a year versus the playoffs. But I think they've got to be a little bit surprised, concerned, whatever you want to say about just kind of the
yeah.
tepidness of the enthusiasm right now.
Well, I thought, okay, it's the same when they were getting bashed for not bringing anybody back.
Yeah.
It was the usual suspects, I thought, that were complaining,
Okay.
the Star Tribune commenters, the cheap poll ads, and all that stuff.
Right.
But it hit, they hit, it appears to me they turned off a lot more people than just the perpetual critics
Okay.
by not spending any, by proudly announcing they
By
were going to
proudly
cut
announcing, right? Like,
payroll.
nope,
They were going to
nope.
cut payroll by 30 million. And they did it. They brought it on themselves, in my opinion. That they brought that. I've changed my opinion. Originally, I thought that okay, these are just there's other people, but it was the PR disaster to announce it. You
Yes.
know, to just you just let people figure it out and say, well, we're looking for the right player or something
Right.
like that. But
We,
it turns out not bringing back Sonny Gray and or any facsimile thereof
right.
bringing in. And it said people the cheap poll ad narrative spread beyond. You know,
Right.
here you got KFan, okay, which is a huge one of the most successful sports talk stations in the country, and they're bashing them all day long,
Yeah.
for being cheap, and that that's reaching an audience beyond the usual
Yeah.
critics. And I'm not blaming them, but I'm
No,
saying
no.
that
Yeah.
that's a narrative that it became the narrative that they
Yeah.
don't care about the fans because they want to put money in their own pockets and
Yeah.
they got the new stadium and they made us all these promises. It's been a PR disaster, and we'll see if the fact that they're and now the TV thing,
The TV thing. Yeah.
no matter what the excuses are, that it looks like the Twins just took the best money deal they
Exactly.
could make
I was
and
going to say
not
that. Yeah.
care. So
Yep.
it's a between those two things, TV and cutting payroll, which the cutting payroll thing I didn't think was reaching as big an audience as it did reach, but so far it's been a PR disaster, and they thought they're going to draw 2 million people this year.
Yes.
They're going to draw 1.8.
Yeah.
They're not going to draw as many as they did last year. The way it looks now, we'll
No.
see if the Yankees. Now they don't draw in May anyway, but if the
Right.
Yankees don't put 25,000 a game in there, if the weather is going to stay nice, I haven't
I
looked.
think it is. Yeah. I think it's supposed to be nice
If
this
the
week.
weather stays nice, you got the Yankees here 3 games. You've gone 17-3. If you don't draw 75, 80,000 people for those 3 games, they got problems. They
Yeah.
got serious problems. I think baseball's got the problem too. I mean, the kids are playing it. Uh, the numbers of kids playing it are fine. But I had a guy, I think my stepson told me this. The team he's coaching, He's coaching like 13, 14-year-olds. He hasn't heard the word twins once.
Yeah.
He's coaching them this year. They don't talk about baseball. But if there's a video, that
Right.
somebody, some great crazy player,
Right.
goofy player. But baseball is. I put a lot of this on the Twins. I also put a lot of it on baseball, not preparing for the regional TV
Yes.
crisis that was apparent 5 6 years ago when everybody started dropping cable.
Yes. And a crisis that affects baseball more than anybody else, right? Because
Oh
they've
God,
got
yes. Yeah.
162 games. They've kind of got this monopoly on time from, parts of May, June, July, August
Yeah.
until the other
And then
sports
during
start
the
up
week,
again.
and even when football starts, you still got the week.
Right.
They're only playing now. If you want to watch a college game between Appalachian State and somebody on a Tuesday night, go ahead. But
Right. Be my guest.
baseball, yeah. But baseball is, they got issues, and no place more. I've been looking at the crowds though. Someplace they're fantastic.
Yeah.
Philadelphia is going to draw 3 million.
Sure.
Now they're good, but there's a lot of places on the weekend the crowds were great, and not here. And
Yeah.
they got a real PR issue, and it's it's being manifested. It's in nobody showing up. We'll find
Yeah.
out. If
Yeah.
you can go 17-3 and not have anybody comes to your games, you're in trouble.
Yes.
Royal Credit Union's smart checking accounts offer no monthly fees and no minimum balance. Enjoy financial freedom when you open your Royal Credit Union smart checking account online at rcu.org/go-checking. Insured by NCUA.
Hard to get sometimes to a different game in town. Go for baseball. You were telling me about the parking issues over there. I've experienced that a couple times, but people found it and made the effort over the weekend to give John Anderson, legendary coach over there, it was year 43 for him over there, I believe, between all the
43, yeah.
stuff, to give him a proper send off. It was his final home series. They still have one more road series, and then they hope the Big Ten tournament. They'll kind of be depending on how they play next weekend. But what was the vibe over there, Patrick?
Oh, it was great. It was great. And I mean, you got a lot of alums, a lot of former players were there. Jerry Thomas was there, the pitching star of the 1956
That's great.
champions.
Wow.
Talking to him,
That's amazing.
he pitched for my old man in Fulda, Minnesota, the mid 50s.
Jeez,
And
he's got to be damn near 90, right?
89.
Yeah. Okay.
He's there. His daughter I think it was his daughter brought him the game, but he's fine. And
Yeah.
Jim Rance was there. Jim Rance, the star of the 1960
That's
pitching
great.
champion. So they had all those alums. Denny Nagel was there and came in from Denver, and they had the good turnout, and they gave me a chance to really the highlight for me though was John Kowski was there standing down the sidelines. I said this on Twitter, and he was talking to like 3 or 4 people, just fans, type of 45-year-old fans, and this woman says, Dick was just going to tell us a joke, and I said, I've heard it, and I walked away. Dick got very offended. I said, don't worry, I've heard it 25 times. Don't worry. So anyway, that was
good.
but yeah, I mean, it was a gorgeous day. And then they come out and get 5 in the bottom of the first.
Yeah.
And the pitcher gets out of a kind of a jam at the top of the first, and then they walk. They get a run, and then they walk a guy on the Drew Birkland. They walk him in front of Boston Marilla.
Yeah.
March kid. March,
yeah.
the all-time leading career batting average guy there. First pitch, it's a rocket into the left center field gap for 3 runs, and they're off and running. They end up winning 21-3, full house. Everybody had a good time. And then they come back yesterday. I wasn't there, obviously. And they score 11 in the last 2 innings to win 15-12. They were down 12-2.
Yes.
And they come back and win 15-12. No, I thought it was a 16 tournament. It was eight. It's an 8-team tournament,
Big
so they
Ten.
still
Okay.
have a chance
Have a
to
chance.
squeeze into the tournament. But they're not good, but they're way better than they they've had the worst 3 years of
Yes.
John's tenure because they had no pitching. And
Yes.
pitching still isn't great. They've had more arm injuries, but they got a much better lineup than they've had. Mostly a lot of Minnesota kids, Hokinson and Drew Berkland from Wayzata and stuff like that. And I think if the program has a future, you're not going to be able to NIL teams, so you're going to have to get that. You're not going to get the top 5 or 6 Minnesota kids. Probably they're going to go to some place where they can get drafted and play all year.
Yeah.
But you're gonna have to get that. There's a lot of Minnesota kids playing baseball in the suburbs and around. And you're gonna have to get that second tier Minnesota kid and turn him into a player. I think that's what the solution is gonna have to be here. Brian Robbie just won another MIAC title, third in a row for Bethel, and he's the alums are on his bandwagon. He'll be 57.
Okay.
But Moscow, I think, was 55 when they hired him. And if you know Robbie, you know that he's got 10 more years in him of
Sure.
fire because he's a fiery guy. And I think uh, I think in baseball, it's not important to get a guy with Division I experience. So maybe he's
No.
got a shot. I just don't trust Coyle in baseball. I don't trust him.
No.
He showed up. He didn't say anything. But I don't know if they have the guts to pull the trigger pull the plug on baseball, but I don't trust him as far as his commitment to baseball.
Sure.
His only commitment seems to be to give Fleck all of the NIL money they can raise. So, if he isn't that worried about helping the basketball program, I don't trust his interest in the baseball program. That's for sure. So,
No. Well, and Anderson's done all the fundraising for this in the
yeah,
last 10, 15 years.
he basically got the new Siebert Field built for 7.5, and then a bunch of alums gave him, Perky gave him a whole ton of money for for that, for that workout facility
Right?
they have up above the right field line, which I don't know what it cost them, but they put a lot more. I mean, I wouldn't say it's first class because it's not big, but it's a yeah, it's a perfectly adequate college stadium. And if Anderson didn't get that build, there'd be
Yes.
no chance that
Right.
this program would survive. But I tried to line up an interview with Coyle last week to talk about the future of the baseball
Yes.
program, and the response I got was, "This is all about John right now," and Mark doesn't talk about teams during the regular season, so he's avoiding the topic to say the least. But I know there's a lot of baseball alums who are very suspicious of his
Yes.
plan. So
Yeah. Well, at the very least for John, I feel like, talking to him a lot over the years, he wanted this year to not so much be about him. He just wanted to put out a better product than what they had been putting out. And I think at least they've done that. They're pretty close to 500 in the Big Ten now. They're over 500 for their overall record. If, I think he didn't want to leave it in bad shape, and now he's done that.
yeah, it's better. It is better, and it was the sellout's only like 1,500 or something. I don't know what, but there's so many people getting there. Had to be 2,000 people
Yeah.
there Saturday, and the the big deal was that they could compete this year, and they did. I mean, it was only 6 years ago. He had one of the best teams I've ever seen over
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. A
That
super regional team,
super
right?
regional team. They made every play in the field. They had Max Meyer pitching, and they had that Pat Fredrickson was the best freshman pitcher in the country. I don't know whatever happened to him. He according to John, he ended up going to one of the drive line things to learn to increase his velocity, and he lost his sinker, because he was just a ground ball pitcher. But John's very frightful about the future of pitching because everybody's looking for
Yes.
velocity. They're all looking for velocity, and he's had an incredible number of arm injuries over there
Yeah. Everybody has.
based on that. So anyway, but yeah, it's good to see him win a couple, and they had a nice ceremony for him, and the dugout club and the some of the alums raised the money. They made sure for me to know that not one penny came from the athletic
Uh-huh.
department for this very
For the
nice
send off. Yeah.
golf cart they gave
Yeah.
him to. 'Cause I didn't know. I guess he plays quite a bit in the summer with.
Yeah.
He's got a couple of buddies he plays with a lot. So anyway, they gave him the golf cart too. So
Well,
that was
you were referencing that team from what, 6 years ago. I mean, COVID and NIL transfer portal just absolutely wreck a program like that, right?
yeah
Just a team
yeah.
a program that relies so much on development. This is not an era of development right now. You had the
No.
years where you lost all the development and now everybody's changing teams. That's a hard way to build a program like that.
Yeah, it is. But anyway, they had a good weekend, and
Good.
hopefully make the tournament, maybe win a game, and they're okay. They can hit. They can hit a
Yep.
little bit. So we'll see. But it was a fun Saturday for everybody who showed up over there.
Before we go, Patrick, we're wondering if the Wolves can win another game in this series. Can PWHL Minnesota score a goal? In
That's
the
right.
we
It's
come back here for
a
game three to
yeah,
today, tonight.
tonight, right? They got to.
They've been shut out
It's a
twice.
great, amazing collapse.
It
The
is
last 5 games, they needed 1 point,
one
and then they had
point.
to back in,
Yes.
and now this, the game they lost, whatever it was, the last game too, was
Yeah.
scoreless for
Scoreless, yeah. Till like
58 minutes,
yes, till
and
like
then they
last 2 minutes.
ended
Yeah.
up giving two in the end. So
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to them. They lost. They completely lost their goal scoring
Yes.
ability, and it'll be. I got a hunch that they won't have 13,000 like they had for their first game over there. But
No, they might get 8 or 9 though. People want to go to the playoffs. I think it'll still be a good atmosphere. But yeah, it's just what a buzzkill end of the year
oh
for
man,
you've lost 7 in a row now, and they haven't scored a goal in the playoffs.
yeah, I met the coach. He seemed, former NHLer, seemed like a live guy, live wire, and knew what he was doing. And he can't score a goal to save their lives.
No.
So it's how many times they get shut out in those 5 games at the end of the
Oh,
season where they didn't get a point.
I don't know,
They
but I think
did
goal
they have
scoring has been a
five
thing all
goals
year.
total?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think goal scoring has been a thing all year. Like even when they were winning, it was a lot of 3-2, 2-1. The goalies are really good, and
It doesn't seem like it's been a high scoring league at all. So
no. Well, I think yeah, the goalies in women's hockey are great. Like you watch even
yeah,
like the
they have
top
gotten
levels of
better.
international play.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen them, and as we my granddaughter's team, she's had the same goalie for 2 3 years, and I called her Maddie the Wall. He was very good, and saved them a lot of games. So anyway, yeah, that's where I spent Saturday afternoon
Yeah.
or Sunday afternoon at a
Was it
boys
13? U
13 and
13?
under
Yeah.
tournament, and apparently I missed all the fun because the day before on another rink, the cops had to show up because 2 parents got in a fight.
Are you serious?
Didn't involve our team, but
Oh, geez.
it was a tournament out of Plymouth, which has got that
Oh,
nice three
geez.
rink
Yeah.
place. And all of a sudden, apparently 5 cops show up to break up a fight
Gosh.
between parents. So
Oh,
you
my
can't beat
gosh.
it. You can't beat youth hockey, man, when they get
No.
really involved.
Oh,
So
my gosh. Well,
anyway.
Patrick, we'll see what the Wolves do Tuesday night. We'll have plenty of that on upcoming shows. I'll have Randy Johnson on tomorrow's show. I'm going to pick Randy's brain on the not just Gopher football. He got the assignment to do the disaster of our new arena football team. I want to talk to him about that and
Oh,
everything
man.
that's going on there.
Yeah. I said on Twitter, we've never had a more appropriately named team. They were a myth. They
They couldn't get to
Have they
Albany.
folded yet? Have they folded yet?
They're supposed to play this weekend, but they couldn't get to
They
Albany,
didn't
and they're
go.
not.
Well, they couldn't. They wouldn't play, and they
Yeah,
teams getting pulled out of the hotels.
Coach,
And
what Foggy said, no thanks, he's done, and
well, they
yeah,
wouldn't pay him, right? They weren't
this
getting
is
their
great
checks.
though. Like this is terrible for the league and everybody involved. But this just reminds me of like how all pro sports were like 50 years ago, right? Like all these like fledgling leagues, you'd have teams
Everybody
starting,
started
folding all the
leagues.
time.
It's the worst sport I've ever seen. And but I went to one fighting pike game.
Fighting
It's
Pike.
terrible. It's awful. We don't need it. We don't need arena football.
No.
Every football is about creating drama. You're not supposed to be in scoring position every play. Okay,
Right.
you're not. You're supposed to be a process. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Just like indoor soccer, also very stupid. It's it's many versions of actual games are
Yeah.
stupid. What
Yeah.
do we have? Indoor real like arena baseball next. What
I don't
an
know.
idiotic
Right.
concept. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's but I didn't Lee Hutton, former golfer, lawyer, right?
He's the
He's
commissioner, right?
He's a guy that had everything. Yeah, his wife is the owner
Right.
of the myth.
Right.
But Lee, you got to have when they start out with 20 teams, right? None of them lose any money. It was unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So
we'll see where that goes.
Got what it deserved, man. Indoor football, idiotic.
We'll get to the bottom of that with Randy tomorrow. Patrick, thanks.
Right.
Enjoy the week. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, sir. Goodbye.